My wife started a conversation at supper yesterday, and I couldn't stop thinking about it on the way to work. She had inquired about it previously, but it appeared that the subject was growing in popularity. I couldn't understand why she appeared to find this so essential or why she kept bringing it up. She questioned how many women I had dated prior to our commitment to one another and whether I had entertained thoughts or fantasies about them when we were intimate. It was obvious that this inquiry could only have one viable response: a resounding nay. My wife and I have established a strong foundation based on friendship, love, respect, and trust throughout the course of our 5 years of marriage. Everything that truly meant something to me was harmoniously combined in our relationship, which is all I ever desired. We both have prosperous jobs, a lovely home in a desirable area, and a strong relationship that I believed could never be broken. You can call me Dave, but my name is David Thompson. I am fortunate to have the leisure and resources to take a trip and enjoy good cuisine, wine, and entertainment. Sophie, my wife, and I enjoy traveling to new locations and taking in life's lovely pleasures. I'm tall, have blue eyes and blonde hair, and am of Nordic and Irish ancestry, which can occasionally make me angry. However, since I started school, I've learned to control my anger by understanding that words are more powerful than fists. Being healthy and taking care of myself makes me proud. I was constantly active as a kid, playing hockey and football all year long and lifting weights in the basement for endless hours. I still managed to fit in jogging, adult soccer league play, and pond hockey despite my hectic schedule. With her brilliant eyes, immaculate skin, and charming smile, my wife Sophie has always been naturally beautiful. People are drawn to her charm and are encouraged to open up to her at any time. Sophie has excellent listening skills. She constantly gives her friends and coworkers her whole attention to show them how much they mean to her. People are drawn to Sophie because of her magnetic ability. Although she draws attention because of her appearance and vivacious nature, she manages to steer clear of unsuitable themes despite her sociability and charm, which frequently result in talks that verge on flirtation. Sophie never lets herself be unnecessary. Sophie is the envy of both men and women since she is tall for a girl with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a physique that draws attention. Her legs and flawlessly carved hips are possibly her most striking characteristics. She finds pleasure and relaxation in training, and she spends 4 or 5 evenings a week in the gym to preserve their tone and flexibility. When she walks by, I can't help but want to touch her, and she doesn't seem to mind. Particularly for me, Sophie's demeanor seems ideal when I consider it. There is only one minor weakness that causes us to argue from time to time. Sophie rarely emotionally pushes a problem to an argument, but she usually stands by her decisions. She is adamant about her beliefs, particularly when it comes to issues that are difficult to support with concrete data or facts. She frequently becomes stubborn as a result, and once the decision is made, it's hard for me to persuade her. After being in a relationship for the final 2 years of college, we both got married soon after we graduated. Sophie probably didn't have many sexual partners before we were married, but I had a wild streak during high school, the summer after, and the first 2 years of college. My goal was to have sex with as many ladies as I could. I was fortunate enough to be one of an elderly divorced woman's first sexual partners when I was 19. She taught me a lot about how to delight women and how to assist them in reaching a climax because she was passionate and experienced in the pleasures of love. Her advice enabled me to put my partner's happiness first, making sure that I wouldn't enjoy myself until I had made sure she was totally content. I responded to Sophie's question about my capacity to please her by sharing insightful insights from previous partnerships. She valued my abilities, but she couldn't help but be envious of the range of partners and experiences I had. During my career, I was employed at Abbott Laboratories as a mechanical engineer. Designing and testing injection-molded components for medical equipment, including respirators, infusion pumps, and ventilators, was enjoyable for me. I had a decent salary and plenty of free time to engage in my interests thanks to this demanding and fulfilling career. Sophie and I are currently working on renovating a Winnebago B-Class van that we will use for week-long excursions to the mountains, the ocean, and the northern side of Lake Superior in Minnesota. There are countless opportunities for adventure. Sophie was a chartered accountant who worked for one of the top 5 accounting and consulting businesses in the country. A reasonable amount of stress, decent pay, and the potential for occasional business travel were all benefits of her position. One of her duties was to accompany the company's junior accountants on audits to make sure they carried out a comprehensive evaluation and adhered to the company's reporting and customer service guidelines. Sophie and Ethan, a new coworker, have taken multiple business trips together throughout the past month. He spent 3 years training to become a financial controller after high school. Sophie first complimented him on his attractive, self-assured, and outgoing personality during their first trip, but she later stopped talking about him. I was excited to travel with Sophie as I put more and more effort into my project, but I couldn't get rid of the idea that she wasn't as enthusiastic as I was, and that concerned me. I knew that after a couple of quick excursions, Sophie would come to appreciate them. Additionally, I saw a slight shift in Sophie's conduct toward me. She appeared less upbeat, outgoing, and friendly. We still have a close relationship in spite of this, and Sophie occasionally came home from work late and fervently offered to make love. She had a great degree of desire the last time this happened, I noted. She was obviously attracted to something. I went downstairs to begin preparing supper while Sophie showered after we made passionate love at the conclusion of a hard workday. I sensed that something was amiss between us lately while I was preparing food. I made the decision to investigate when Sophie eventually sat down at the table with me. Sophie, meanwhile, was lounging beneath the hot water jets and relishing the taste of our private moment, but beneath her happiness lay a sense of dread and guilt. She kept thinking about the recent good time she had had with her coworker Ethan. He had been urging her to go out to eat and dance lately. She was fully aware that she was going too far, particularly given the increasingly flirty and unsuitable tone of their chats for a married lady. She was lying to herself though, and she couldn't deny it. The thrill of connection with another guy in this unlawful relationship consumed her. She had already decided in her mind to have an intimate connection with him and was aware of her intense physical attraction to him. I deserved it, she reminded herself. I need to get this obsession out of my head and focus on my marriage, said Sophie. Dave had a lot of intimate partners before we started living together, but I know he would never cheat on me. I will never cheat on him either, but I made the decision to spend the weekend with Ethan. I need to figure out how to talk to Dave about this. I love him and I would never want to hurt him, so I will be honest with him. It's just one time, just an affair. It's important for me to solve this problem and move forward in my marriage. Sophie went on to reflect. If Dave really loves me as much as he thinks he does, he will be open to this conversation, and together we will be able to overcome any difficulties, becoming even stronger than before. I cannot lose this hope, although some part of me is afraid that this might just be wishful thinking. Determined, I waited for Sophie in the kitchen making cornbread and shrimp salad, placing glasses of wine. After taking a long breath, she eventually said, "We need to discuss something important, Dave. Please, let's be honest with each other. I love you and I know that you love me. Let's go through this together." "I need to talk to you too, but why don't you continue?" I responded. I couldn't help but wonder how many relationships had taken a turn for the worst after hearing Sophie's somewhat menacing statements. "Don't worry, Dave, there's nothing wrong with that. This is something that will benefit both of us. I do not know how to put it into words, but it seems to me that something is wrong between us lately. You haven't been as affectionate and open with me as usual," Sophie started to think. I questioned incredulously, "Have you forgotten about the passionate love we just shared?" A bewildered, "Dave, that's not what I meant," she answered. "But since you're talking about it, what made you want me so badly that you practically tore off my clothes?" I joked. Sophie's visage shifted abruptly, displaying hints of remorse and protection. "Dave, if you don't like that I love you so passionately, then maybe that's more your problem than mine," she responded with defensiveness. Seeing the overtones of anxiety and guilt in her eyes, I quickly recognized her defensive posture and corrected her. "Can't you see? Can't you tell me what's really going on? Do I have a reason to worry about you?" I inquired. The realization that the conversation had gone awry made Sophie feel guilty. She was aware that in order to have a fruitful chat with Dave, she needed to gather herself. "Dave, I'm really sorry, that's not what I wanted to say. I need to tell you what's going on. I want you to remember that I love you and our life together more than anything in the world. Our relationship is very dear to me, and I am deeply in love with you," Sophie started. "Please keep in mind, Sophie, that you are causing me great concern during our conversation. Are you romantically involved with someone else? Are you unfaithful to me?" I began to make progress. "Dave, how could you even imagine such a thing? You know that I will never betray your trust. I appreciate and respect you too much, but I need to have a serious talk with you. I'm asking you to listen to me and really hear what I want to say. When I'm done, feel free to ask any questions and we can discuss them further. My love, I want to emphasize once again that I am devoted to you and only to you. I imagine a future with you, children together, old age together, and I will always be by your side as your wife," Sophie concluded. "I have something difficult to tell you, so please listen carefully. Do you remember when I mentioned Ethan, my colleague with whom we traveled together? Well, I also had lunch, met with him, and had dinner. I know this may seem suspicious, but I want to assure you that this is not an affair or cheating. I may have crossed the line by not telling you how I spend time with him, but I promise there's nothing wrong with my intentions," she continued. "Maybe I don't feel love for him, but our communication was filled with flirting and meaningful hints. It all seemed a little cheeky but harmless. That was until he confessed that he wanted intimacy with me. He is 7 years younger than me, incredibly attractive and in great shape, and I found myself inexplicably attracted to him," Sophie admitted. "I questioned myself in a fit of rage. Had she sacrificed her present relationship for him? Was she in love with him? Was this her way of giving me the truth, or had she already cheated on me?" Her words didn't truly express what she meant, and Sophie winced at them. "Dave, I want you to know that I haven't been intimate with anyone, including Ethan. It was difficult for me, but you have to understand that my love is only for you. Ethan is just a young guy. I have no chance of falling in love with him. I had limited sexual experience before we met, and sometimes I feel like I missed the opportunity to explore everything before we became a couple. I wish I had a chance to try something new like you did before we fell in love. It's hard to get rid of the idea that this young man I'm attracted to wants to make love to me. Ethan and I were flirting at work today, and therefore when I came home, I felt incredibly passionate and needed your love," Sophie acknowledged. As I became aware of the repercussions of what Sophie had just said, my face flushed and my heart began to race. She responded by saying, "Dave, that's not what I meant. I love you deeply, and being close to you is not just a physical pleasure. It's the most enjoyable connection I've ever had. But I can't get rid of the attraction to another man. I made the decision to enter into an intimate relationship with him because I see this as the last opportunity before we start building a future together with children, a career, and so on. I think I deserve this experience, and I ask for your understanding and permission. I want to assure you right away that I have never cheated on you and will not cheat on you, and my respect for you remains unshakable," Sophie replied. "That's why I'm asking you to let me do this. I also inform you that I have already made a decision," she stated. Sophie was startled to see me slouched in my chair with tears streaming down my cheeks and forming in my eyes. She didn't envision it that way. It was just intended to be a throwaway in-person meeting. There should have been no difference. "Dave, I only love you. I want to be with you, grow old with you. It's a purely physical connection, it's not love," she chirped, convincing me that she was right. Sophie pleaded with me, attempting to defend her desire for closeness. If I were to grant her that indulgence, she would promise to atone for the rest of her life. She emphasized that this was only an expression of her love for me and vowed that she would never change. Sophie was startled by the pain and rage in my eyes when I stood up from the table. I'm hoping she'll understand how her remarks have harmed our marriage and relationship. How could she think that my granting her this request was a sign that I loved her? It was just bullshit. Sophie, I see right through you. It's all a sham. I know what's really going on. You've already betrayed me by having an emotional affair with someone from work. You shared intimate details about us and our marriage with this man, went on dates, drank, and who knows what else. For me, this is already a betrayal. Are you telling me that you haven't moved on to the next level and slept with him yet, and now you think you can make amends by offering more love to me, spending time with me, and showering me with caresses? This is not love but manipulation," I yelled. "Dave, please stop. This is not a novel. No, I didn't sleep with him, but I admit that I kissed him several times after lunch. Maybe it was because of the alcohol, but I have to admit that the excitement of a new person ignited something in me. It will be a one-time intimate relationship, not an affair. I will never have feelings for him. I will always love only you, but I feel like I need it, and if you really love me the way I think, you would understand, Dave. This is just an affair, not love," she begged. "I can't get rid of this feeling, although maybe it doesn't matter at all. I do not know what to do next, but I promise to fix everything," she said. "Sophie, I'm shocked that you even asked me this question. You've already hurt me by getting into an emotional relationship with another person. You betrayed me by discussing intimate details and physical interactions with him. The fact that you kissed him looks like the same deception as if you slept with him," I responded with rage. "Now I realize how stupid I was," Sophie remarked. "I believe that your love for me was as deep as mine for you, but I could never bring myself to hurt you the way you hurt me. I don't even know if you realize how much damage you've done to our relationship and marriage," I shouted with rage. "Dave, please stop being dramatic. I love you and only you. You can trust me, and that's why I have to be honest with you. It shouldn't hurt you because this is about me, not you. It was just a senseless mistake," she responded. "All right, Sophie, maybe I'll find some pointless fling too, and then you can figure out if you believe in this nonsense," I responded. I rose, grabbed the keys, and made my way to the door. Sophie yelled. "Dave, come back and grow up. This is not a mistake. It will help me become a better person and give you more love and attention than ever before. Is sleeping with someone who is not your husband going to make you a better person?" "You're crazy, Sophie," I responded. "I can't believe you really think that's true. I don't understand how you can claim to love me and then expect me to accept your infidelity and move on with my life. I'll never be able to just brush it off. If you keep this up, our relationship is over. Do you understand that?" I replied with rage. Before Sophie could get to me and yell, "Dave, please don't leave. Let me prove how much I love you. We can handle this together and make it better for both of us." I looked at her with a mixture of sadness and suffering, tears streaming down my face, and I hurried to the door, got into the car, and drove out of the driveway. I told myself, it will do me good. Sophie sat in disbelief, feeling frightened and depressed. "Unbelievable, what am I going to do now?" she asked herself. "How could I have screwed up like that? Why can't he understand how important this is to me and that it won't hurt our love and relationship?" But she was unable to deny the facts. It had already taken place. Dave had never abandoned her, and they had never argued like this before. Although she had always been certain that she loved him, she began to have concerns about his feelings for her. She reluctantly admitted that she might have ruined their relationship forever. She was already planning the weekend with Ethan in spite of this. They planned to engage in intense intimacy, have brunch, and stay at the hotel for the day. Dinner, dancing, and even more private moments would occupy the evening. She wished for love and connection during the weekend. She planned to have as intimate a relationship with him as she could before going home on Sunday night and giving marriage and Dave her whole attention, even if she was plagued by uncertainties. She had faith that he would forgive her in due time. She acknowledged that she hadn't fully explained everything to him and that he was currently in anguish. She felt it was unjust of him to become so concerned over her needs and wants and to think that she was already having an affair. She was certain that Dave would eventually accept her decision, which would allow them to fortify their bond and go together in the direction of a better future. Her anxiousness grew when she hadn't heard from Dave after 2 hours. When he departed, she could see he wasn't feeling well. She had no doubt that he would get in touch with her in order to make amends, go back home, and express their love for one another. But when a while went by with no message or call from him, she made the decision to get in touch with him. She left a voicemail apologizing when he didn't answer. It wasn't just about their relationship. It was also about their love and future together. "Dave, I'm sorry that everything happened like this and that you're suffering. Please know that I love you and I only want to be with you. Let's go through this together." She left Dave a second voicemail an hour later. She was getting ready for bed when she checked her phone again, but Dave was still not picking up. "I'm talking to you. Let's put everything in the past and work on a relationship. Please try to understand and come back to me." After lying down on the bed, she ultimately dozed off restlessly while crying. I rented a hotel for the night at the Hilton next door. I ignored Sophie's calls and voicemails and drank a lot after an unconscionable amount of time in the hotel bar before crashing into bed. I made an effort to block out the agony that was taking over my life. She thought it was okay to proclaim her love to me while insisting on breaking our marriage vows, and I was still in shock and disbelief at her boldness. Her stubbornness was something I was all too familiar with, yet there were repercussions if I exceeded that line. I knew I had to show her how serious my actions were before it was too late because it was a mistake that could have ended our marriage. However, I couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that it might be too late. Even if I were successful in persuading her this time, how could I be certain that she wouldn't betray me again in the future? Without a question, our marriage would have been ruined if I had permitted her to cheat on me. I was aware that my feelings for her would change forever if I allowed her to do this. How long would it have taken her to find another man if I had agreed? Wouldn't she become angry with me for not taking a stand and demanding that she belong to me alone? There didn't seem to be any good solutions, and I started to worry that the fall was only getting started. After giving it a lot of thought, I decided that the best way to help her understand why she wanted to have an intimate relationship with someone else would be to persuade her to reconsider and come to therapy with me. Sophie was astonished to discover that Dave was not in bed with her when she woke up the next Wednesday morning and reached out to embrace him. She looked everywhere, including the sofa and the guest bedroom, but she couldn't see his car, indicating that he hadn't come home. She was devastated by this revelation. She chose to contact him after seeing that there were no voicemails or fresh messages on her phone, but he didn't pick up. A text notice showed up on her screen just as she was ready to end the call. "You did it?" Sophie rolled her eyes at Dave's theatrical message. "Sophie, I'll be home at 7 today. Please eat before I come. We need to have a serious conversation about our future together. She was first irritated, then nervous. Did he imply that their future together was uncertain? She was plagued by the concept, which made her feel both anxious and disappointed. This was not what she wanted to happen. She only wanted to be with him because she loved him. Why was he unable to comprehend that? She would have to explain it to him tonight. Ethan approached her with his typical charm while she was seated at her desk at work. His words, "Good morning, pretty girl. You look good enough to kiss and cuddle. I hope we still have everything ahead of us this Saturday. Did you tell your husband? Should I be worried?" Sophie exhaled. "Ethan, let me deal with Dave. Maybe he doesn't quite agree with this idea, but it won't cause any problems. Yes, everything remains in force. Our plans for Saturday remain in force, and I can't help but be happy about it," she replied. Nevertheless, Sophie couldn't help but send Dave another message as he left her desk. She told him how much she loved him and promised to be there for them in the future. An hour went by before Dave gave her a brief, sardonic response. "Yes, of course." Sophie was upset and saddened by Dave's childish actions and the suffering he was bringing them both. She had faith in her ability to mend it. She thought their connection would get stronger and better than it had been before because of her love and care. As soon as Sophie left on Wednesday, I went back home, gathered my tools, and finished the last of the van's repairs. I rebuilt the cassette in the toilet, finished all electrical and Wi-Fi connections, and successfully installed a solar panel. I thought I could build the cabin and get the car ready for the trip by Thursday, so I filled the tanks with water. I was able to forget about the ongoing suffering and melancholy by working on the project. Sophie was about 2 hours away from coming back, so I took some time to look up material online regarding divorce, money, and consultants in order to create a rough plan of action for the future. I quickly made a list of my priorities and rushed to the bank before Sophie got back. I took the effort to establish a credit card in my name alone and cancel the one we shared. Using money from our shared account, I also deleted our joint checking account and started a new one in my name alone. For the next 2 months, I paid the mortgage on the house in advance. I then split the remaining sum, sending half to her in the form of a check and the other half to my savings account. After resolving these financial concerns, I went to my favorite pub for a beer and a cheeseburger before getting ready for a chat at home. Dave was still not home when Sophie got there at about 6 o'clock in the evening, and she wasn't sure whether he was home at all. She ate the lunch and considered how she could approach Dave more positively this time. She ran to Dave as soon as he came inside, gave him a hard hug and kissed him on the lips. She told him that she was worried and wanted to make sure he was safe, and she chastised him for walking away without saying anything. "Dave, please don't ever disappear like that again without letting me know you're okay. I love only you and I will always love only you. You don't have to go through the pain alone, Dave. I'm right next to you. I thought that we were united and would always be united, but now I'm not sure about that. A week ago, I never imagined that you could ask me to approve of your extramarital affair and then expect us to continue living as if nothing had changed. It's hard to believe that you can claim that you love me and want us to stay together and at the same time ask for permission to cheat," I grumbled. Sophie stated, "Dave, please don't try to tell me that I don't love you," while crying. "It's not cheating if we both agree to it and it's just a one-time affair. Stop reacting and acting so immaturely," she said. "Sophie, if you want to talk about drama and immaturity, look at yourself. I see a woman I once loved, but now it seems to me that someone or something unfamiliar has taken possession of her. She's trying to convince me that she loves me, but at the same time she wants to have an affair with another man for the weekend and then go back to what it was before. But I know it's impossible. We will never be able to become the couple we were before," I responded. "How would you feel, Sophie, if I went and slept with someone else and then told you it was just an affair?" I inquired. "It's not fair and you know it, Dave. You've had a lot of women and sexual encounters in the past, and I haven't had any. If you had done that, I would have kicked you out, and I'm not sure I could have forgiven you," she replied in disbelief. "So why should it be different with me? Why don't I kick you out, and why do you think I can forgive you?" I replied facetiously. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. She said, "Dave, I can't imagine life without you. I have strong feelings for you and I always want to be with you. But let's be honest, Sophie, your offer is not sincere. Have you already agreed to this? Have you assured your partner that you will sleep with him?" I inquired. "Dave, why are you distorting the situation? He's not my partner. He's just a one-night stand. I talked to him and we have plans for this weekend, but on Monday I will show you a whole new level of passion," said Sophie. With a sinking heart, Sophie fled into the kitchen and collapsed into a chair. "You've always been the best wife a man could count on. You've been like this before and you'll stay like this if you don't go for it. She begged me to comprehend her as she stared at me with desperation in her eyes and voice. Dave, please believe me when I say that I love you more than anything in the world. Please don't let this decision come between us, our partnership, our marriage. You are my husband, my lover, my best friend, the one with whom I want to share my life and create a family. You mean everything to me. Please don't let this separate us, she pleaded. I glanced at Sophie, a mix of bewilderment and disappointment on my face. I held out my hand to her and said, Sophie, you just can't figure it out, but I promise that I will try to understand and go through everything with you. If all this were true, you would never have told me about your plans for Saturday. This conversation will lead to nothing if you keep going. It's over between us. I'll be back Friday night, I replied. Let's spend this night together, make love and cherish each other while we still can. Dave, please don't leave me anymore. We have to deal with this, please, she pleaded. Friday night, Sophie. I'll bring dinner around 7 o'clock in the evening, I responded. Ethan will pick me up on Saturday morning. I'll tell him to pick me up at 11 o'clock in the morning. I want you to meet him, she pleaded. Jesus, Sophie, are you really going to meet him? If I see him, I swear I'll beat the shit out of him. He's a jerk who's ruining our marriage. Think carefully before we meet on Friday. I warned you. Dave, please don't leave like that. Just tell me that you're okay, that this won't separate us, she pleaded. Sophie, I will never be able to accept that you have an intimate relationship with someone other than me. If you want to be with someone else, then get divorced and get your way with any man in the world, I responded. I won't stand in your way, but I want you to understand that your request caused more pain than you think. I have one condition under which we can move on. If you stop this affair, completely break off your relationship with him, and agree to attend counseling with me to work on a relationship, then maybe we can keep what we have. If not, then I know it's over between us. Please think carefully about your decision and give me an answer by Friday evening, I responded strongly. Dave, please don't give ultimatums and don't leave me. Let's solve everything together, Sophie continued. I complained sarcastically, yes, right? God, you never cease to amaze me, I said. In order to secure a hotel for the night from Wednesday to Thursday, I left the room and returned to the Hilton. I then called my supervisor and said that I was taking a day off until the end of the week due to family matters, and he grudgingly granted me the leave. I wouldn't tell him the specifics of my predicament, even though he was curious. Depressed by Dave's departure, Sophie was leaning on the table and holding her head in her hands. Why he was so obstinate about the matter was beyond her comprehension. Even though she was positive that he would never abandon her, she couldn't help but believe that their relationship had already suffered a great deal. She knew that carrying out her plans would only make things worse, but she was adamant about being with Ethan because she couldn't help but want to be with him. She ultimately made a compromise with Dave, consenting to spend the weekend with Ethan while also going to a marriage counseling session with Dave's preferred counselor. Then she arrived at the bed, burdened by remorse and guilt. A tornado of ideas was racing through her mind as she lay in bed. She upset and enraged Dave, who meant the world to her. It all seemed like too much to take. Was this what she truly wanted? She couldn't escape the decision she had made and she felt stuck. She reminded herself that Dave's arguments were unfounded and that she needed it. He had previously turned to other women for comfort, and she had stayed faithful. It was little more than a bodily act. He had to go on and swallow his pride. To be sure Sophie wouldn't miss anything, I went back inside after she left for work on Thursday and began packing the items I wanted to take in the van. I went to the store to give away clothing that I would not need and had never worn. I relocated sports gear, tools, and leisure things I didn't have space for to my best friend James's place. I also gave him some of my uncle's pen and ink sketches. I had faith that James would comprehend me. After we sat down at the table and took a drink, I discussed my predicament and my options. With a look of incredulity on his face, James said, Dave, you've got to be kidding. Sophie would never betray you like that. She's head over heels in love with you. He questioned my choice, implying that maybe she had a head injury or some other reason for her actions. Feeling perplexed and lost, I admitted, I no longer know what is real and what is not. I don't know what to do at all. In 1 week, my whole world collapsed and it was like I stopped recognizing Sophie. I can't understand it. The love I once had for her is being tested, diminishing with each of her lame excuses for why it would somehow benefit our marriage. She's acting irrationally, I told James. Can't we just forget about it? Maybe you should go to a therapist and move on, he said. No way. I made it clear to her that we would get through this if she didn't betray me, but if she did, then I don't see a way to fix the situation. I begged her to change her mind, but it seems to be useless. I will try my best to give her an unforgettable and amazing Friday night in the hope that she will finally listen to reason. This is my last attempt to save our relationship, I replied. Good luck. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to support you during this difficult time. Perhaps I can ease your pain and offer my help in some other way. It breaks my heart that you two are fighting like this. You were my inspiration for a strong and healthy marriage, and now it seems that both of our ideals have been shattered, he stated. With regret, I uttered, I never imagined that this would happen to us. I'm trying my best not to give in to the urge to engage in a physical fight with him, I continued. But Dave, if the situation escalates and you need help to get back at him, just warn me and I'll come to the rescue. Take your time, think about it, and stay safe, my friend, urged James. Oh, and I have a new phone and number. I'll text you the details so we can stay in touch, I replied. His words, hold on, buddy. I then went to the Verizon store, changed our data plan to one in Sophie's name solely, and purchased a new phone and number. See you later, brother. After returning home, I took the van for its first test drive and was pleased with how well it performed. I was prepared to drive after the interior was completed, new license plates were obtained, and insurance was obtained. I virtually erased all traces of my previous existence by purging my home computer of all private emails and papers. I emailed our friends, family, coworkers, and relatives to let them know of Sophie's choice and my response. I would have informed them that she had chosen to embark on a new journey if I couldn't persuade her. The claim that it was only an extramarital affair would have allowed her to defend herself. She requested my permission, and despite my entreaties to the contrary and my warning that it would destroy our marriage, she proceeded. Although I hoped I would never have to write this letter, I wanted people to know the truth in case things got out of hand. I've also included a voice tape from that night as evidence. When I visited with a divorce lawyer on Friday, he told me that the procedure would probably be easy because we don't have children and our earnings are equal. It was believed that a divorce and property division would be equivalent. The sole point of argument was whether or not this clause would apply to my account, which contained over $200,000 in deferred tax and into which I had made sizable payments. It was made more difficult by the fact that my ex-wife was a member of a defined benefit pension plan. I ultimately came to the conclusion that I had worked hard to get this money and did not want to run the danger of losing half of it due to an unfaithful lady. In order to avoid having my retirement savings impacted by the divorce process, I chose to take a 40% tax hit and withdraw the money. Still hoping that I could persuade Sophie to terminate this recurring nightmare, I made the decision to wait until the weekend. I thought Sophie had complete control over our future, our marriage, and my love for her as Friday drew near. All I could do was hope and pray that she would choose wisely. I fired up the grill after buying Caesar salad, swordfish, and shrimp on the way home. I mixed a gin and tonic, made a couple of bottles of white wine, put ice in the refrigerator, and waited for Sophie to get home from work. When she entered the kitchen and saw that I was cooking, she was overjoyed. Thank God you're home, Dave. I've missed you so much and I hate it when you're not with me. Promise me you won't do this anymore. You love me, I love you, and we should be together. She grinned. She approached me and I was astonished and thrilled when I gave her a hug and a tender, long kiss. Sophie, why don't you go freshen up and put on something attractive? Bring a glass of wine with you to start the celebration. As soon as you come down, I'll start grilling, and we can enjoy a wonderful dinner together. Let's focus on celebrating our marriage today instead of talking about how this might be our last dinner, I replied. It upsets me that you doubt our relationship. I've assured you countless times that I only love you, Sophie remarked with a scowl. This is something I have to deal with on my own. You have nothing to do with it. Let's put this conversation on hold for now, Sophie persisted. First, let's take a shower with wine together, and then we'll eat and move on to the most interesting part of our evening, I joked. Mister, I hope that you will stay with me tonight and not leave me upset or worried about you. I'll be back soon in an outfit that will show how much I love and cherish you, she joked. When Sophie came down from her shower upstairs, I was astounded by her gorgeous French attire, which included a tiny white beanie. Sophie had on a tight white shirt with a low slit that showed off the majority of her body's attributes. She had on stiletto heels, a short skirt that just barely covered the top of her panties, and a black silk skirt that reached her thighs. Wow, Sophie, you look incredibly seductive and just stunning, I said. I can't wait for you to see the other outfits I've planned for the next few weeks of our life together, she replied. I winked and remarked, but first, let's cook the food on the grill. I'm hungry, but I'm even more impatient to get to dessert. She showed that she wanted it. They drained glasses of gin and tonic, ate dinner quickly, and drank the majority of the first bottle of wine. I took her in my arms, went upstairs, and gently placed her on the bed since I could no longer control my passion. I restrained her impulse when she grabbed for my zipper and belt. When I said, "Today, everything will depend on you, Sophie," I wanted to cherish every inch of your body and create memories of our love that will last a lifetime. I want you to truly understand the magic we share and why we are destined to be together. You are mine and I am yours, my love. Please make love to me tonight. Let's get rid of the stress of the last few days and strengthen our love for each other, I said passionately. We had a romantic moment together that evening. She then fell asleep after admiring how happy and fulfilled she felt. Sophie recognized that it was time to get up and get ready for a new day when she woke up at 8:30. After their passionate lovemaking the previous evening, she felt guilty, nervous, and depressed when Ethan was scheduled to pick her up at 11 a.m. She had not previously questioned whether her decision was the right one. What might be compared to what they had in common? She was determined to see it through, though, in spite of her reservations. She slipped on a bathrobe and went downstairs when she heard him fussing in the kitchen and smelled the aroma of coffee, cooked eggs, and bacon filling the air. As she walked into the kitchen, she remarked, "Last night was amazing, Dave. I see a future with you filled with such moments. I love you very much and I'm grateful for last night." He focused on preparing scrambled eggs instead of responding immediately. At last, he turned to face her and inquired whether she was hungry. "I think I can do without food, Dave, but thanks anyway. I have breakfast scheduled for 11 o'clock in the morning with Ethan, so I want to keep my appetite for it. I need to freshen up and get ready quickly. Can you stay here so we can say goodbye, hug, and kiss before the weekend?" She replied with tension. "Sophie, I'm not going to beg you anymore. I just want to ask you one last time. Are you absolutely sure that you can make love to someone who is not your husband?" I said, ceasing to make breakfast. "Dave, please stop it. It's just one time." "It won't change how I feel about you," Sophie responded. I vowed not to leave until I said farewell to her after looking into her sorrowful and painful eyes. The seriousness of my words and the sight of my suffering made Sophie's heart sink. It was like closure, like saying goodbye, and the concept made her shudder. However, I reassured her by telling her that I loved her. She assured me that everything would be all right and that this suffering would end quickly. We were meant to be together forever, she reminded me. Her words of encouragement didn't stop me from feeling depressed. When I was drowning in uncertainty and hopelessness, how could she have such confidence? At my comment, she flushed, her eyes filled with tears, and she quickly made her way to the restroom. She was thankful for the chance and promised to spend the rest of her life making amends with him. Why is he always so dramatic? Couldn't he just let her enjoy this one fling and move on? She said. Dave had obviously been impacted by the incident, and she knew it would take a lot of effort to make him feel better, but she was confident that he would eventually realize his mistake because he loved her very much and always looked out for her. It's going to be different this time, she thought. She quickly showered and put on cosmetics, selecting a dress that was both stylish and appealing, and accessorizing it with high-heeled shoes and thigh stockings. She made an effort to appear her best. It was 10:30 a.m., and she knew there was not much time left as she came down with her bag. It was like a dagger to my heart to see that she was dressed to meet another man. "Dave, are you okay? You know how much I love you, don't you? And you love me too, don't you? Didn't last night show you that we can overcome this and continue to live together?" Sophie's comments kept reverberating in my head. Last night was supposed to be a special celebration of our marriage, a memory that we could carry with us for the rest of our lives, I grumbled. "But Dave, please don't call it our last night together. It's unfair to try to make me feel guilty for seeking solace in a moment of passion. We will get through this and become stronger than ever," she answered with optimism. I comforted her by holding her close to me and staring into her eyes as she leaned in to kiss me. "Sophie, our evening has come to an end. You chose a casual weekend fling over your marriage. Those kisses don't matter anymore," I said quietly. "Dave, please stop it. It's not what you think. This is the only case and I deserve it. You've had a lot of women in the past that you can fantasize about, but I don't have anything. I have a strong physical desire to have an intimate relationship with this person and move on. It doesn't mean love. It won't affect our relationship or my love for you," she yelled. I reaffirmed, "Yes, Sophie, it's just a one-time thing." The sound of a car approaching the entryway and a horn honking cut Sophie off before she could respond. She remarked impatiently, "Dave, you need to stop all this drama," Sophie said. "Maybe I should let Ethan in and introduce him to you. Maybe then you'll realize that he's just an attractive guy, not a threat to our relationship." I said, "Don't you dare let him in here or I'll break his nose." Her eyes widened as I clenched my jaw and clenched my fists, saying that I would cause unimaginable pain to someone. I will be back on Sunday evening, and you will still be my one and only lover, my life partner. The beep sounded once more. Sophie's heart thumping in her chest, she flinched in dread. She had fallen in love with a lovely person, but this was not the man she knew. She pleaded, "Dave, please," her voice shaking with terror. In an attempt to quiet the tempest raging inside him, she stretched out a trembling hand to him and said, "Leave it alone, please. Let me deal with this, and I promise I'll come home to you safe and sound. We can get through this together." She prayed that he would pay attention to her and that love and reason, rather than ruthlessness and anger, would drive his actions. For a brief moment, Dave's eyes met hers, and they were filled with regret and compassion. In the hopes that he would choose forgiveness over retaliation and love over hate, she held her breath. She picked up her luggage, made her way to the door, and paused to smile at me, but she felt a sudden wave of remorse and terror at the pain and anguish on my face. In spite of this, she gave me a bold smile, a kiss, and the assurance that she would be the ideal wife and companion I had always dreamed of starting on Sunday night. She said farewell to me with a final proclamation of love, and I waved pathetically as she walked away. "Goodbye, dear." Tears were flowing down my cheeks as I sat on the kitchen chair, attempting to accept her going. Sophie seemed to be living in her own world, certain that this was what she needed to be happy, despite my best efforts to stop the adulterous affair that threatened to ruin our marriage. I sobbed for what felt like an age before I eventually stood up and began loading my belongings into the van. I began by noticing Sophie's wedding rings on the coffee table in the bedroom. I put them in my pocket and made the decision to move on from this difficult period in our lives, feeling a mix of rage and sadness. I packed up everything that cost the most money 2 hours later. My late uncle's sculptures, paintings, and sketches were carefully packed, placed in crates, and kept beneath the van's double bed. When I realized my first outfit selection was too large, I promptly changed it and tossed everything I didn't need in the garage trash can. I was filled with despair and wrath as I roamed about the house. A wedding album with 40 pictures from our special day 5 years ago caught my eye. It used to bring happiness and peace, but now it only brings up unpleasant memories. I then went down to the table and penned my final letter to Sophie, tears streaming down the paper. At last it was completed. Not forgetting to write Sophie's name on the outside, I placed the letter and the check for her from our joint checking and savings accounts in an envelope. I placed the letter and photo book on the kitchen table, then removed my wedding ring and placed it on top of the letter. I sadly got ready to write a letter to all of our friends, family, and acquaintances, planning to send it at 9 a.m. Monday. By then I wouldn't be home. I walked out the door, got into my van, and left my former life behind. Sophie and Ethan had already eaten brunch and checked into the hotel that Ethan had reserved for the weekend by mid-afternoon on Saturday. In order to extend their time together and avoid the awful Sunday lights out, he planned to convince Sophie to stay on both Saturday and Sunday. Sophie couldn't help but get excited when they got into bed and undressed since she saw another man who was completely nude and interested in her. Sophie softly reminded Ethan to relax and take his time, but Ethan wasted little time in initiating physical contact. "Today and tomorrow we have a lot of time to enjoy each other. Maybe I can help you relax and keep warm," said Sophie. "I'm not very comfortable doing this, Sophie, and I find it a little annoying." "Let me take care of you," Ethan stated with irritation. He brought her pleasure for a few minutes with his words, but it was not precisely what she had hoped for. Intimacy was swiftly established and he started to move vigorously. A few minutes later, he called on Sophie to join him as he declared he was going to reach a climax. When it was over, he lay down on the bed and reclined back. Unable to accept what had happened, Sophie lay there. She had virtually little desire and was far from climaxing. Ethan said he had to clean himself first and then bring her a washcloth, so he quickly got up and ran to the restroom. Sophie went away from the restroom, but she couldn't help but reflect on what she had done and the hurt she had caused Dave over something that was more trivial than she had thought. "I want you to know that my love is only for you. Please assure me that you're okay and that you feel the same way about me. I'm looking forward to our next meeting." Ethan left the room, full of youthful energy and hungry for more. She quickly texted Dave, taking her cell phone from the bedside table. Even though they had 3 intimate encounters that day, she only reached the pinnacle of their relationship on the third occasion, and then only because of her own efforts. They dressed and headed out to supper. They didn't have any emotional or physical ties, and the dinner was awkward small talk. It was as if the magic she had experienced had vanished. They chose to dance after the feast, but it felt more like dancing with a family member than a loving partner. She no longer seemed to be attracted to Ethan physically as she previously was. She kept ordering more and more drinks, delaying the evening until they were both inebriated and struggling to get back into the room, even though Ethan wanted to go back. Upon arriving in their room, she quickly undressed, collapsed onto the bed, turned away from Ethan and dozed off. Ethan was still asleep in the morning. Her body ached from the events of the previous day, and she woke up with a headache. She was reminded of the regrettable choices she had made over the weekend by Ethan's snoring, which filled the room. She chose to try one final time to have a memorable private encounter with a young man in spite of the repercussions. In an attempt to spark passion in the bedroom, she reluctantly tried to wake Ethan up with morning caresses. Then he awoke abruptly. "Did you like it, kid?" she asked, wiping her mouth and turning to face him. She leaned down to kiss him, but he retreated, saying, "No way, go clean yourself up and brush your teeth before you continue." She was devastated, so she took the phone and vanished into the bathroom, shutting the door behind her. As though to purge herself of some unseen danger, she switched on the shower and lathered herself frantically. After drying herself, she checked her phone to see whether Dave had responded to her messages while she sat on the toilet. She contacted him and went straight to voicemail when she didn't get a response. Disappointed, she sent a final message, "Dave, I love you. Are you all right? Please reassure me that you're okay and we can move on. This situation has become an unfortunate mistake, and my heart belongs to you forever. I will return home as soon as possible to hug you and express my love for you. Please confirm that you are all right." After persuading Ethan to join her for breakfast, she confessed, "Ethan, I made a mistake. Now I understand that my love belongs only to my husband, and this weekend with you showed me that no one can compare with him in my eyes. I'm going back to the room. I need to pack my things and leave immediately. I'll call a taxi. I don't want to see you at dinners or social gatherings anymore, and I'd rather we avoid each other at work as well. I'm sorry, but it was a huge mistake. Sophie, you wanted it so badly and convinced me to go along with it, so go back to your husband and try to forget how wonderful we had a great time together. There are plenty of women in the world who are more attractive than you and would love to be with me," he said with a grin. Sophie responded incredulously, "Ethan, you are inexperienced and have no idea how to please a woman. It's time to face reality." Upon arriving in her room, she gathered her belongings and departed. On Sunday afternoon, Sophie called a cab and got home about 3 o'clock. She was shocked to see that the massive vehicle that took up half of the driveway had vanished. She assumed Dave had finally done it. He most likely went for a nighttime tour or test drive. Sophie was upset that he hadn't waited for her, and she was disappointed that she was late for the first flight. She noticed a slight shift in the mood as soon as she stepped through the door of the house. Her initial thought was that Uncle Dave's oil painting of waves smashing on the bay of moonlight and in Canis, which had hung over the fireplace, was no longer there. She looked around the room and saw that several pieces were missing, such as his uncle's bison sculpture that was on the fireplace. She called Dave because she was getting anxious and didn't think he was moving the task. Even though the home was empty, she felt compelled to express her worry aloud. She looked at her phone once more and saw that Dave had not responded to any of her texts. She contacted his number in a panic, only to be told by an automated voice that it was no longer operational. She let out an incredulous cry and fell to the ground. With tears running down her cheeks, she cried out, "My God, what have I done?" She gathered her courage, wiped away her tears and made her way to the kitchen asking, "Dave, how could you leave me like this?" She quickly thought about the possible outcomes for him. In her wedding album, she was on her knees when she noticed Dave's engagement ring resting on a letter. Her heart wrenched with bewilderment and incredulity as she gingerly accepted the ring while settling into a nearby chair. She opened the letter with shaking hands, and as she struggled to read the lines, tears came down her cheeks. The letter read, "Sophie, this is my last goodbye to you. I may be a coward, but I couldn't look you in the eye after you dumped me. I found your rings on your dresser and I knew it was over. You left our marriage with the perfect symbol, taking off your wedding ring. You knew that wearing it meant admitting your infidelity, and you weren't ready to give up a free weekend. You seemed to believe that you could cheat on me and get back into our marriage as if nothing had changed. I can't understand how you think it's acceptable to break our vow, humiliate and disrespect me, and treat our marriage like it doesn't mean anything. A seemingly innocent weekend fling that shouldn't have affected my feelings for you, but in the end, she became everything. She made me realize that your love for me, if it existed at all, was far from matching the depth of my love for you." Sophie read Dave's farewell several times that this was actually taking place. She saw Dave's tear-stained sheets as she read the lines he had penned, a sobering reminder of the harm she had done. She felt nauseous at the sight of the destroyed wedding album and did her best not to pass out. With a sense of self-loathing and self-pity, she asked herself, What have I done? How could she be so foolish and self-centered as to sacrifice the love of her life for a pointless relationship with a man who showed no interest in her? Feeling guilty and hopeless, Sophie fell onto the living room couch and wished she could go back in time. She sobbed herself to sleep as she cuddled up with tears running down her cheeks. She was shocked to learn that she was obstinate and obsessed with getting what she wanted from a new sexual relationship. In a few weeks, her life was destroyed because she disregarded all of Dave's warnings and commands. She will live with the repercussions of her treachery for the rest of her life. Dave, meanwhile, decided on the spur of the moment to travel from Minneapolis-St. Louis along the banks of the Mississippi River. Paul and I are on our way to Louisiana. His concerns concerning Sophie and whether he had made the correct decision were only heightened by the long hours spent behind the wheel. However, he was aware that he needed time to think things out. Right now, the thought of becoming friends, much less life partners, seemed unthinkable to him. Perhaps he might think about calling her if he could get over his anger and reach a place where being with her was more important than being apart, but he didn't think that would happen. It would be a long and unpredictable road ahead. Sophie found herself in a terrible circumstance where she had to endure humiliation and suffering in order to defend her illogical choice to engage in sexual activity in front of her loved ones. She was aware that none of them could sympathize with her or offer any kind of help. She discovered that she could no longer comprehend her own logic, much less communicate it to others, when she attempted to defend herself. She was forced to face the painful reality that there would be repercussions for the affair. She was forced to acknowledge how foolishly she had persuaded herself that their relationship would not be impacted. She now had to face the terrible truth that her conduct had shattered the one love she had ever experienced and ruined her marriage. She had to accept responsibility for her acts and the consequences they had on Dave and herself after realizing the depth of her narcissistic self-centeredness and ignorance. Her friends and relatives had turned away from her, making it clear that she had lost their respect. Sophie wanted to make things right, so she called Dave's best buddy, James, and begged him to provide her with Dave's contact information or whereabouts. Finally admitting and accepting responsibility for his adultery in their marriage, Sophie pleaded with him to deliver his message of love and regret to Dave. The woman was willing to go to any lengths to mend their relationship. She wanted to let him know how much she loved and missed him. She was resolved to make a complete transformation after confessing her transgressions. Sophie committed to staying faithful to him and keeping their marriage vows. However, despite her best attempts, she never received a response from him. In the hopes that he would ultimately come back to her, the woman cut off all communication with him and concentrated only on her job and her house. She waited patiently for their relationship to be restored, being loyal to it. About 6 months after Ethan's ordeal, a horrible occurrence happened one day. He was assaulted while returning intoxicated from a nightclub. Sophie and Dave thought back on what had transpired, wondering how they could have thought that everything would be all right. Years had gone by, and Sophie continued to hope Dave would return, but he never did. Sophie was preparing to leave for work one fateful morning when a man came up to her and inquired about her identification. Upon verifying her identity, he presented her with an envelope bearing the words, "You have been served." Sophie stood there, emotionless and with a faint smile, bidding her husband farewell for all time. Dave was content with his lovely wife, Emma Davis, who was 5 years younger than him and had just given birth to a healthy kid, Liam Thompson, a week ago, 7 years after he and Sophie had split up. Being a father made Dave joyful. The discovery of love and happiness in his life was something he couldn't get enough of. Sophie's life has undergone a transformation. Sophie was unable to conceive for the second time despite marrying a wealthy man, Richard "Rick" Bennett, who hoped to have an heir. Rick, Sophie's husband, threatened to leave her if she couldn't conceive an heir after she miscarried. He waited patiently after giving Sophie another chance to conceive and give birth. Sophie needed help badly. She played sports, led a healthy lifestyle, and their joy was unbounded when she became pregnant for the 3rd time. This joy, however, was short-lived. Sophie had another miscarriage in the 3rd month of her pregnancy. Rick and Sophie abruptly got divorced a month later. Being a mother brought joys that Sophie didn't deserve. You must choose between fate and karma.